I think speaking is the most underrated marketing tool in the world. That's, you can run ads, you can put something on a billboard, but if you can get in front of an audience where they know, like, and trust you, and people say, okay, what's your offer? Like, how can I work with you more? That to me is the big win.
How much better would you be at your job if you were a better communicator? Well, today, my guest is one of the most sought-after communication coaches in the country. He's spoken at TEDx events, associations, retreats, business conferences, and executive groups such as Vistage and Convene. He's also coached leaders in organizations like the NFL, Amazon, Uber, and Google to help them increase their influence and grow their organizations through improved communication. Today, we're talking about communication and how you can become a better speaker. It's coming up right now. Great day, everyone. I'm Mike Pawlawski, former world champion quarterback, serial entrepreneur, and award-winning TV producer and host. I've lived a life dedicated to mastery through performance and mindset integration. Each week, I'll bring you the insights, strategies, and stories from some of the world's top performers to help you unlock your greatness. Whether you're an athlete aiming for the top or an executive driving your team to victory, this is where you learn how to train your greatness to become an everyday great. Now let's get after it. And so right now, Caleb Spitler, welcome to the show. I want to talk about speaking, and a lot of people want to become public speakers. A lot of people want to communicate more effectively. And so I thought I'd have you on today because we've had such great conversations about it.
Absolutely. It's such an honor to be here. Thanks for having me on, Mike.
Absolutely. So tell me this, and we'll start off really quickly. When it comes to communicating, especially from a stage, especially when formatting speeches, what should people be trying to do? Where should they be getting to with their thought process?
Well, I suppose that would start with the purpose of the event. So what is the big idea? And a lot of times when I work with speakers, they can get really lost in the weeds of what they're trying to say. And it's actually surprising to me how far people can get down that road before they actually really know what their main objective is. So oftentimes I'll say, hey, what's the biggest win for you coming off of this event? And they'll kind of say, oh, I hadn't really thought of that. They've gotten so kind of in the minutia of formulating their speech where they don't have a very clear purpose and objective. And for example, I spoke just recently here at kind of a larger event in Milwaukee, and I listened to some of the other speakers, and they did, okay. And but I could tell that they didn't have a clear objective, or they wanted to get more leads for their business, but they didn't have a clear plan in place for that to happen. And so at the end of their talk, it was just, okay, well, come chat with me after if you want to work with me more, as opposed to someone that has a very clear laid out strategy. Like myself, when I spoke at it, I think I had 37 people come to me and say, hey, I want to work with you more. How do we go about doing that? But that was because I mapped out every part of the process of, hey, this speaking event is about generating leads in my business. So the stories I tell, the way I'm laying out my entire message from start to finish is hopefully going to cause people to say, wow, if this is what Caleb can do to help me in 45 minutes, what can we do to work together more? And again, I think a lot of speakers, they lose the big purpose or the big goal of what they're trying to accomplish.
Well, I mean, so important on anything you do, right? Start with the end in mind. Start
Absolutely.
with your goal in mind, and then you can formulate not just your message, but your plan for whatever you're doing. And so I think it's a great place to start with our conversation today, because the end for people will be to become a better communicator from listening to today. That's really the point. Communication is involved in every single thing that we do as people. As a leader, you have to be an effective communicator. You've known some people with great ideas that couldn't communicate, that couldn't get to that point where they could actually lead effectively. So it's huge to have it. Speaking publicly, especially for leaders, is super important. And so we're going to talk about that here all day long today. Remember at home, if you guys are listening to this, we are trying to help people. We are trying to help as many people as possible, trying to communicate here ourselves. And so as part of my podcast, that's what I would like to do. So it would help us and would help me if you guys would share this out. So if you could share this with friends, I'd appreciate that. And make sure that we expand this community, because I am absolutely obsessed with making people better right now. Like that's where I'm at. And Caleb has made me better, I'm telling you. So that's why I'm sharing him with you as an audience. How did you decide, or how did you become a speaking coach? How does this career path happen for somebody?
Well, I'm a pastor's kid, and so I grew up going to church every Sunday and listening to people communicating. And, whether or not people are into religion or not into religion, you can't deny that many of the best communicators in the world or even speaking coaches actually came from faith-based roots. Same with a lot of the most well-known musicians in the world came from some kind of faith-based roots. And a lot of that comes from just getting so many reps in. These meetings are happening on weekly basis, sometimes multiple times a week. And so, coming out of that upbringing, I went on to study communications in college. So I have a degree in communications, and then came out. I was working with youth, so giving lots of presentations in kind of the nonprofit world with youth, only to then get married and start having kids and realize I'd rather be in the for-profit world rather than nonprofit. And so that's where I got into different forms of sales. Most of the times giving presentations. So I would give presentations to large groups and then sell whatever I was selling on the back end. And then essentially became professional keynote speaker. And as great as that was, the travel got to be quite a bit. And so shifted more my business to doing less on stage and more coaching other people that want to be speakers. And that's definitely been so fulfilling for me as well. As much as I love the energy of getting on stage and inspiring people and entertaining and creating new ideas in people's minds, I actually found that it was, for me, many times more fulfilling to see someone I worked with who's a true expert in their space, but maybe couldn't always formulate their ideas. If I could help kind of unlock the magic inside someone else and watch them crush it from the stage, I just found that was just magical for me. And so I am exactly where I want to be right now. I absolutely love seeing people that, again, have these amazing missions, amazing businesses. I love seeing them iron out their communications so that they can have the impact on the world that they're wanting to have.
I absolutely love that. And I have seen pictures of Caleb's family. I would want to be in the for-profit world too. I mean, beautiful family, fantastic. I would want to make sure they had everything they needed. And we've talked about family before. So important to both of us and so important to people at home. Human connection, so key. How does a person, when people get up there and speak, they're nervous, right? They have that stress response is kicked in, especially the first several times. They're kind of thinking fast and everything's going on. When you're in that stage as a speaker, how do you connect with an audience?
Simple answer to that. I think I'll share a story. I think you heard me share this story before, but this was in high school. One of my first jobs was working at a nursing home, and my friend's mom had kind of tricked me into coming to work at this nursing home. I really didn't know what I was going to be doing, and I didn't know how much of that job was going to be taking people to the restroom and cleaning them up after they went to the restroom. And I was pretty nervous about it. And I felt I'm someone that gets sick easily. So I thought, man, if I'm in there trying to help somebody out, am I going to be able to, figure this out, or am I going to get sick? And I remember walking into the first person's room to help them out. And it was this lady who I walked in, and hopefully this isn't too much information for your audience, but I walked in and there's just kind of like poop everywhere. I mean, it's just a huge mess. And I feel my stomach start to turn, and I'm like, I think I'm going to be sick. I don't think I can do this. And I remember looking at her face, and in that moment, she saw me looking at her, and she started to cry. And she said, I know I'm disgusting, aren't I? Like, you don't want to, this is why I didn't call for help, because I was so ashamed of all this mess that I made. I kept trying to clean it up, and I kept making it worse. And I'm just so ashamed of myself. And it was like, in a moment, all of the reservations I had, all the feelings of nerves, I shifted all the focus from myself onto her. And I got right down in her face. I looked her in the eyes and I said, you're not disgusting. This is what I'm here for. I'm here to help you. And it was like a switch flipped in my brain. And I would say that that's so similar to speaking, that as speakers, we get so nervous when we're thinking about what we're going to wear, or do we do a good job, and all these things. If you can switch the focus off yourself to other people, even if you have to step into some crap, into other people's worlds, sometimes you go through some crap in this business, but is it worth it to you because you have a message and a mission that you actually want to change someone's life? And so the simple answer is love. Like if you love people more than you love yourself, you actually care about people, that mission will drive you to be a better communicator. So a lot of times as a speaking coach, I'm not, at least initially, trying to get people to change their tone or change their inflections and change their body language. I would much rather start with, do you care with the people you're communicating with? Like, do you actually have conviction? Does it burn inside of you? Are you going, for speaking? Sometimes people get in the speaking business to make a quick buck, and it's like, yeah, it's cool to get paid 5, 10, 20K, whatever it is for a speech, but do you actually care about the people in the audience? And so a lot of times we have to raise our conviction levels. So after I've done all my preparation, after I know all my points, after everything's done, I'll spend 5 to 10 minutes walking on stage thinking about the people in the audience. I think about the single mom that needs to hear this message. I think about the new business owner that's trying to get their business off the ground. I think of that person with this amazing message that can transform so many lives if they can only improve their communication. So by the time I'm on stage, it's not hype. It's not that I'm, getting more excited about something than it really is, but it's a genuinely deep connection with my message, where I'm saying, I care so deeply about that person in the audience. You got to flip the switch from yourself to your audience. And if you can start with their why, if you can start with what matters most to them, then all of a sudden it just completely changes the game as a communicator. So focus on your audience, love them enough to get the focus off yourself.
Such a great point. I make the point in my book, Everyday Great, which by the way, if you're interested in Everyday Great, you can get my pregame checklist. Just text GREAT to 55444, and I will send you that checklist. You get on a list that we will announce when the book comes out. It'll be later in October. But I talk about that moment with surrender, right? Which you're talking about with that lady in the nursing home, where all of a sudden it changes from me and about everything that I'm concerned about in the world to the purpose, right? And our purpose as humans has always been, as a species, interdependent. We are dependent on each other. We have to interact with one another. And that's why our biology dictates that when one person's in regulation, when one person is doing something, the other person follows into suit or becomes defensive about it because it goes against what they believe. And so we affect each other in such an important and profound way that it really is part of our purpose. Having to help other people. That's why we're so dependent on our parents growing up. That's why we have our children and we take care of our children. We love our children so much. It's because we're so dependent. And so it's so important. It's such a great lesson for speakers at home, because you can try to be really technical in everything you do. You can have these, I'll tell a story of my own here. I'll match story for story with you here today, Caleb. But we were doing a game on the air, and we had a first-time sideline reporter. And she was a professional cheerleader in the NFL, and she was so nervous about hitting all of her talking points in the game that she was literally reading what they call her hits in between all the time. That's all she was doing, was reading her hits all day long. And our audio was so bad that it was in our ear. We could actually hear it up in the booth. Sometimes that, you guys may get clean audio at home, but it's not always clean for the people in the booth. And so she was just reading it over and over and over and over. And I finally told her, I said, look, they don't care that you hit every word perfectly. They don't know what you are going to say. You are the only person that knows that. They care more that they can feel what you're feeling and that they can understand why it's important. And if you can do that, if you can emote to them, it doesn't matter what words you use. They will get the sense of it through that emotion. And so that's to your point about connecting with audiences, about helping people. That's essential for doing that. And so now that I've set that stage, let's talk about the technical side of that. How does somebody technically do that? How would you break down a speech to be able to connect with an audience like that?
Absolutely. Well, I think the first thing is to make a connection with them in the way where they're saying, wow, Mike's just like me. That's really how we build rapport. If you've ever looked at any of the studies on how to build rapport, even to mirroring, where you're nodding at the same time, you're smiling at the same time, you're mimicking the arm motions, people will say, wow, there's something about that person that I really just like. I can't put my finger on it. Well, it's because they're like you. We like people that are like ourselves. We gravitate towards people that are like ourselves. So sometimes I hear speakers come in and they try to be so impressive right from the get-go. Oh, I'm, Mike Pawlawski. I've accomplished all these things in sports, former, NFL quarterback, broadcaster, all these different things. I mean, if you, try to just blow people away with how impressive you are, you have to be cautious that you're not creating so much separation that the audience isn't looking at you and saying, well, you're nothing like me. Like, you're going to tell me how to live this life, but you sound like a superhero. I'm just an ordinary person. And so I know even with your speech, we talked about what are the areas of connection points where you can say, yeah, I've accomplished all these things, but did you know that I actually had a lot of anxiety with this? And everyone in the room can nod their heads and say, yeah, I felt anxiety before when it comes to performance. And so one of the speaking coaches that I pay, he talks about being extraordinary and ordinary at the same time. If you're too extraordinary, then people won't connect with you. But if you're too ordinary, then people might say, well, why am I listening to you? Like, why are you giving me advice? Should I be, maybe I should be on stage and you should be in the audience. So it's trying to hit that combination of you're impressing people, but you're also saying, I'm just like you. And speakers that can do that well, it's just masterful to watch when they're saying, they're almost like making fun of themselves, but at the same time, letting you know, hey, I actually really know what I'm talking about and I'm worth listening to.
Yeah, and it's so easy to fall into that, no matter what your resume is, right? To fall back on your resume. And people at home, you listed some of the stuff I do. You never really feel like that as a human being. I don't know who does. And so it's that human side where I was always, we all have a little imposter syndrome. We're always worried about what other people are thinking about us. And I find that's the side too, where I connect better with people at any level. They want to go, oh, you're a quarterback. There's a lady who works at our Ace Hardware over here. Love her. She's fantastic. And I'll walk in and she's like, oh, you're a football player. I'm like, no, I'm just Mike. Like, I don't want you to treat me like a football player. I want you to treat me like a person. And so that's what I love. I love, that level of connecting. And it's such an important tip for people at home to be able to connect at that level. For leaders who are trying to communicate, for people who are trying to find a way to motivate, what can they glean from not just learning how to speak publicly, but from conversation, from connection in general?
Yeah, well, I think leaders need to, coming back to that conviction piece, leaders need to sell themselves first. Like, I was reading a John Maxwell book this week, and he talked about how people won't answer the call of an uncertain trumpet, or I think is the way he phrased it. But if you're uncertain in yourself, it's difficult for people to want to follow you. And so I'm a big fan of selling yourself first, making sure that you feel conviction before you're trying to get other people to come along with that. The other thing that I talk a lot with people, especially in a presentation context, but this can also happen in just a one-on-one, maybe sales setting, or you're trying to get people to buy into your vision, is to start with a problem. I think people get into the solution way too quickly when they're talking with people. We need to establish the problem first before we get into the solution. So the way this looks in a speech, let's say you're giving a speech on leadership. What most speakers will do is they'll say, all right, today we're going to talk about inspirational leadership. So what is inspirational leadership? And how do we become more inspirational leaders? Like, that's the wrong starting place. The place you should be starting is, why do we even need inspirational leaders? And what happens to you? What happens to your business? What happens to your marriage? What happens to your family? What happens to your health if you're not an inspirational leader? So you want to spend at least, let's say it's a 45-minute speech, you want to spend at least the first 15 minutes or so letting them know why what you're about to say is really important. So usually you get like 10 seconds to get people to say, okay, you're worth listening to another 5 minutes. So use that next 5 minutes to say you're worth listening to another 45 minutes. When I'm speaking at a conference, people have their laptops up. People could just walk out of the room. People could go to the bathroom. They could take a sales call. I don't want any of that. I want them to know on the front end, hey, the words I'm about to speak to you, the strategies I'm about to show you are going to totally change your life. So if you walk out, or if you're sending emails or you're not fully focused, here's the cost of you not listening to what I'm about to say. So I want to thoroughly establish the problem before I give them a solution. I want to raise their desire. Like every good story has a plot. You want to establish plot on the front end so that they're saying, okay, come on, Mike, give me the solution. You told me all the reasons why I need this. Now give it to me. You want people begging you for the solution, not people saying, no, this is mildly interesting. I'll just how do we get them to lean in, to sit forward in their seats and say, oh my goodness, yes, you've established the plot. You've established the problem for me. You made me hungry. You've increased my appetite for the solution that you're going to bring.
I love when you start throwing out like just lines from speeches that you haven't given, but you just have the stuff automatically built in. You can tell a pro when they, I watch a quarterback, he can pick up a football and throw it at any time, right? A receiver can get into and out of a route, and you're like, oh, that dude knows what he's doing. When you do that, I always go, yeah, clearly Caleb knows what he's doing. So I love when you can just kind of pick up in the middle of something and go, by the way, this is what I would do in the middle of a speech. Here's how it goes on any topic. It's fantastic. I love seeing that. You hit on a really good point earlier in the John Maxwell book about not following a trumpet that isn't clear or whatever it was. I know that people need to know that the leader knows what they're doing, right? People don't necessarily need to know what the plan is, but they need to know that the leader knows what the plan is. What if they're a new leader, right? What if there's somebody who's trying to get that? How do they connect with an audience then? What's an answer in there for that? I know that we're supposed to be talking about communications, but I'm always fascinated. Leadership is about communications, right? So what would you do as a leader in that case?
Sorry, you cut out for just a sec. Can you repeat the question for me?
So if you're a new leader, maybe you're not 100% sure, right? Just like new speakers, they're not going to be 100% sure of the process. How do you communicate that to your audience? How do you communicate that to the people that you want to lead? Because sometimes you're not going to be resoundingly clear in what it is that you want to do or what it is that you are doing. So how do you communicate that to your audience?
Well, actually, I want to kick it back to something that you said to me on our last call about the Navy SEALs. Do you want to share that example of how they make decisions and what is, I think you'd said there's 3 things that you can do, but there's one you can't do.
So I love this. So we got to do a long-range shooting school. We called it a sniper school for my show, Gridiron Outdoors, for the Navy SEALs. And there were 2 guys, both fantastic human beings, both SEALs that had seen action. One of them was actually the sniper team leader for SEAL Team 6. And he had told us, because we were talking about an op that he was in the Middle East over, I think it was in Afghanistan, could have been Iraq. But he said, there are 3 things you can do in any situation. There's the right thing, the wrong thing, and nothing. You can always do the right thing and the wrong thing. Those are both options, but you can never do nothing. If you freeze, you die. And so nothing is not an option.
Exactly. And that's what I would say as a communicator is even if you're not 100% sure if you should go left or right, you have to decide and you need to be decisive about it. Even if I'm 51% think it's this way or 49% think it's this way, once you decide, you have to decide. And if you're going to call people to follow you, you have to say, I'm not wavering on my decision. Do I know 1,000% that this is the right decision? I don't, but I'm totally clear that this is the decision that we're going. So it's not, hey, I think maybe we should go this way. Like the team's going to say, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Does anyone have more conviction here? So I'm happy if you might not know for sure if it's the right decision, but you have to have conviction and stand by your decision. Even if you think this could be the wrong one, but I'm so crystal clear that this is where we're going and this is what we're doing. And I'm going to communicate that with confidence and authority.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of that approach of it may be wrong, but we're going to do it full speed. So let's go do it, right? And in football, we used to do that all the time. Guys would ask me, we'd watch film, we'd do something, and then towards the end of my pro career, I was helping set game plans. And I'd be like, well, will it work? I'm not sure it'll work, but we're going to try it. We're doing it 100%. And if it doesn't work, we'll adjust. You can always adjust. People think that decision is final, which makes those decisions seem so monumental every time. But most decisions, 80 to 90% of the time, you're going to be right if you just make it work because you can see the writing on the wall. But if you're scared and you hold back as a result of fear of making the wrong decision, now you're just going the wrong way and your nervous system is going to hold you back as well. For people trying to book speeches, that's a big one, right? We know that, trying to get on stages. You and I have had several discussions about this. What's the best way for people to if they're just getting into it, to start the process, to start looking for bookings, to find a way to get into the business?
Yeah, so there's a number of different strategies to land more speaking engagements. And first thing I'll say is it's always a moving target. So it's never, hey, here's the playbook on how you land speaking engagements. It's always what's working now. But there's really only, in my opinion, 3 or 4 things that you can do. So you can ask for referrals. So you can reach out to everyone that knows you and say, hey, I want to grow my business through speaking engagements. Where do you go for training? And see if you can find someone in your circle already that can get you on a stage. Second thing you can do is cold outreach. That's cold email, cold LinkedIn. In fact, I have a strategy there. If people text the word speak to 33777, again, that's speak, SPEAK, to 33777, I'll give them one of my favorite strategies for landing those stages via cold outreach. And then the third thing you can do is create content. So you can be putting yourself out there on a regular basis so that people can see that you're a speaker, they know your expertise, and then potentially they would come to you and say, hey, I see all the things that you're doing, Mike. Our company would love to have you come here. So ask people in your warm market, do cold outreach, create content. You could work with a speaker bureau, but I really don't recommend that for newer speakers. Just the way that speaker bureaus are set up, they're going to push people that have the most amount of fame and also the highest fees. And so if you're a new speaker, that is not you. So you need to grind it out yourself before you put that ball in somebody else's hand, in my opinion.
Yeah, so super important. If you're looking for that resource, make sure that you get with Caleb, because super important. So text that message. And then secondly, taking control of anything is what we were just talking about. You can't do nothing. A lot of people don't want to do sales, right? Speaking sounds really romantic as a profession. And people think of speaking as an end game, but they don't think about the sales side of it. They don't think about all the other sides, because that's what we do with careers, right? It's super romantic to be a professional football player. It's not super romantic to have all the surgeries from playing professional football, right? But you never think of those things up front as well. So talk about some of the backside things that people getting into this business, that people are trying to speak, would have to consider as well.
From a business standpoint, it seems to me that there's really 3 pathways that make the most sense. One is just a keynote speaker. Your fee is between 20 and 40K, and you're trying to book as many speaking engagements as possible. And so let's say you're for ease of math, let's say your fee is 10 grand. You want to make $1 million. You're going to have to book 100 speeches in a year. That's typically 2 nights away for those speeches. You're talking about being away 200 nights a year if you want to make $1 million as a speaker. So that's one message or one pathway. Seems like it takes 2, 3, 5 years or so to really get to that level where you're getting booked consistently at a very high rate. And that's just a professional motivational speaker, or keynote speaker, I should say. The second pathway would be the B2B model, where you're speaking at conferences or associations. Then companies that attended those conferences ask you to come work with their company. So then you're doing workshops and trainings with that company. And then the company may even sign you to consulting. So they're saying, hey, we want you to work with our sales team, our marketing team, our leadership team long term. So then you're doing training that is potentially virtual for a large portion of that. The third way would be some kind of B2C offer. When I say B2B, I mean you're selling to either a business, or B2C is you're selling to an individual customer or consumer. And so that would be like for me, working with individuals for speaking coaching. If I speak in an event, then a lot of that is to generate leads so people know that I'm a speaking coach. I think speaking is the most underrated marketing tool in the world. That, you can run ads, you can put something on a billboard, but if you can get in front of an audience where they know, like, and trust you, and people say, okay, what's your offer? Like, how can I work with you more? That to me is the big win. So I still speak, my aim is to kind of speak less than 20 times a year, but between 10 and 20 times a year I do some different things that are more for impact, but for my business, 10 to 20 times a year. But my goal is then that's really the main funnel for getting people into my business. That's how people know what I do. And what better way to prove myself that I can help them than to do a keynote where they can listen to me and say, gosh, you helped me a ton in 45 minutes. I bet you could help me more if I worked with you. So I strongly encourage people to focus on the back end offer after their speech. So not just thinking about being a paid keynoter, but to have your whole business with multiple streams of income. But you can do it. There are people that are 7-figure speakers, and I talk to them and I say, how's business? And they said, good. I've not been home in 3.5 months, but it's going good. I'm like, yeah, that's not the model that would work for me.
No, especially with young kids, for sure, not the model that work for you. And if you like your home life, and so many of us do like our home lives, right? Which is why we want to speak, that you want to be home for that home life. So it's really important. I love it. I love the speaking aspect of it. I am, like I said, I am obsessed with helping people to get better at what they do, right? And so I'm obsessed with that right now. But I love the juice that I get from it, because as a player, I used to get that juice. You'd be there for a game and you get that adrenaline, you get into that acute stress response, you kind of get into that moment. And I opened my book actually with the story in the tunnel about what that's like for a player. I had one of my teammates the other day just read it. Hop, when you get my book, you'll know who I'm talking about. But he just read it the other day and he's like, dude, you put me back in the tunnel. It was awesome. And so, but that juice, like when you're done playing, you start to miss that. And that's the beauty of our nervous system, is once we train on how to do that enough. Some people, they literally, I've seen studies where they say there's like 50% of people would rather die than speak publicly. But if you train your nervous system on how to do these things, if you train yourself on how to do it, you can do it really well, and it becomes really fun. I love that feeling. I love that adrenaline. I love that stress response. I love getting that moment where I feel like I'm on a dime. It's why I do live TV. It's why I do live games. It's why I speak. I love that piece of it. If people don't love it to start, how do they train it? I just asked you this question the other day, and for the exact opposite reason. I want the juice. I love it. It helps me speak better. But when I'm at home in front of a camera practicing, and you got to practice, people have to practice everything. But when I'm at home in front of, I don't get it. Like I'm not, okay, I'm in front of a camera, whatever. I don't have that connection point. I love connecting with people. How do people practice? How do they get used to feeling that presence?
Well, I do think turning a camera on takes it up a notch if you're just practicing in your home versus if you're actually recording yourself. It just raises the level. Certainly meditating on the audience being there. Anytime I'm at a conference, I like to try to walk the stage before I am actually presenting. And so if I can, steal away in kind of the early morning or at night after all the setup's done and actually get on the stage and start to go through my walkthrough where I'm going to be presenting it, that definitely helps me visualize and get in the right frame of mind for it. So much of this is reps as well. Like you're saying, it's one of those funny things of, well, how do you train for it, is to do it. So for me, there are different schools of thought of, okay, should you always charge or should you, take free stuff? For me, early days, I just would not turn down a speaking engagement. Like when I was first getting started, I just said yes to everything. Of course, I love when I get paid for it, but if you don't pay me, like I'm still showing up, because I think people minimize the importance of practice. Where people are like, yeah, I've done this a couple times, I'm good to go. It's like, as a professional athlete, I mean, you can tell me, do you ever arrive, or is there always like this never-ending pursuit of excellence? Yeah, I played sports in college. For me, it was like, we're training all the time. And so the same for me with speaking. I speak a lot. I have spoken a lot. I would say maybe 300 or so presentations in the last kind of 4 years. And so I'm giving lots and lots of presentations. So I use these reps. There's really no shortcut to reps. Like you actually have to just be speaking a lot to become a better speaker.
That is 100% accurate. One of my favorite quotes of all time is, the amateur practices until they get it right, but the pro practices until they can't get it wrong. And when you are speaking, you have to practice. You have to take the reps. And to answer your question, as a pro athlete, I was looking for every single thing that would give me an edge, right? That's how I collected my paychecks. That's how I kept playing. That's how I made the team. And they were bringing in dudes to beat me out every single year. I win a world championship the year before. Guess what? They're bringing in another quarterback to try to beat me out the next year. They can get a dude who can do it as well for cheaper. They're going to do it. And so that's just the way it works. And so you're optimizing every part of your game. It's how I came up with my high achievers protocol. It's in the book, by the way, that you guys can get. But it's how you train your nervous system to do that. And that's why I think it's so fascinating. That's literally why I love working with you, is because whenever I talk to you, I get better. I improve at my craft, right? Which is now my craft of speaking and keynotes and all of that, getting up on stages. That's part of my craft now. And I want to be so good at what I do that my audience feels it, right? We want to feel it in their soul. You want their limbic system to hook on when you're talking to them, because I see keynotes as a team sport. It's the one thing when I got done playing, I missed the locker room way more than I missed the championships, right? I miss my teammates. And so if I can create that bond with my audience, if I can create that bond with those people to help them get better, it is the most fulfilling thing in the world to me. And so, yes, improving, working on it, practicing all the time, being relentless about getting better so that your audience gets better, because they deserve it, right? You have to do it for them, which gets back to your initial point in this whole thing.
Can I jump in on that, Mike? Because I think what you just said, people need to hear that, because so many people, the first question they come to me with is, well, how do I get on more stages? Well, how do I increase my fees? How do I get higher stages? How do I, increase my marketing? What's my website need to look like? What's my demo reel need to look like? What's my one sheet needs to look like? And people are very concerned about the selling and the marketing of them as a speaker. And I wish people were more concerned about the product on the back end, where they're saying, how do I get a higher rate? And I'm like, maybe be a better speaker. How do I get more speaking engagements? Improve your skills. Like, picture it this way. If one speaking engagement turned into two for you, meaning you spoke at a conference and two people in the audience said, hey, we'd love to have you come speak to our people, and those two turned into two, and then those two turned into two, like, it wouldn't take too long before you had more speaking opportunities than you could ever deal with. And oftentimes there's 100 people in the audience that could hire you. And so people always want to know, what's your scripting for cold outreach and different things? I would much rather have people raise your skill level. It's a world of difference if you come in and they say, hey, Mike, that was good. Really appreciate you coming in. You're a really great speaker. Versus them saying, Mike, you're the best speaker we've had in the last 5 years, and we have to bring this to our other department. Like, what's it going to take? What's it going to cost to bring you into this other department? So the difference between you being a 7 out of 10 speaker, which most people think they're actually like 4 out of 10 speakers. But the difference between a 7 out of 10 speaker and like a 10 out of 10 speaker, 10 out of 10 speakers, they just get all the opportunities because they're good. And so that's why I want to encourage, if you hear me, if you want to get into the speaking business, I would encourage you, before you even worry about your sales and marketing, do you actually have a product? Meaning, do you have a speech that's worth someone paying you 10 grand or whatever it is to come step on a stage, and you fulfill that so well that they want you to come back time and time again, or other people that hear you say, you have to come speak for me. That's where I get most of my speaking opportunities. Is I speak, hopefully I crush it, and then people in the room say, come speak for us as well. Like, I haven't done cold outreach in 6-7 months, because the ideal place to get is you're just doing such a good job that you're getting so many referrals that you can build your business almost 100% off of referrals.
Such a great point. Do the job well. So when I was playing in the NFL, we had all these guys. It was during, kind of the .com boom was just starting, and there was a bunch of stock market stuff moving up, and there was all this talk about, oh, hey, what's the big investment? Hey, what do you do there? And hey, how do I make more money here? Where do I put my money? Which is important, right? You got to plan. But there was one player in our locker room who he had everybody gathered around. You could hear him, and he says, "You guys want to know how to make $1 million?" And they're like, "Oh yeah. How do we make $1 million? Like, you really want to know where to invest to make $1 million?" They're like, "Yeah." He said, "Then find a way to play another year. Get better, make sure you keep your job, make sure you keep playing at this level, and you're going to make your paycheck again, and they're going to increase it. And so that struck me like deep in my soul. I'm like, oh yeah, wait, don't look past the obvious for the nuance, because nuance is always hard to chase down, but the obvious, you can land that, you can do that just by doing the simple things. And so I think that's a great point. Thank you for making that. And you guys at home, you can see why I have so much respect for Caleb, and why, I just love having him on, because he helps me get better. And I can't say something nicer about somebody than that. I love coaches. I love people who help me get better. I love teammates who help me get better. And so I feel like Caleb is both a coach and a teammate to me in that regard. We both have a shared purpose of helping audiences at home. How can people get a hold of you? I know you sent out the text. Make sure people at home that you text that number, get the resources, but how can they get a hold of you, Caleb?
Yeah, again, if you text that number, text SPEAK to 33777, then you'll get that free giveaway that I have. Otherwise, if you want to shoot me an email, you can just email me at info@calebspitler.com. That's info@calebspitler. That's my last name, SPITLER.com. I check my email regularly, and especially for speaking engagements or coaching, that's the best place to reach out to me.
Awesome. And we will also put that down, the show links down below. So if you missed it here, that's okay. Just go down below. You can click on it there. But so awesome to have you on, brother. Like I said, I look forward to our times that we talk, that we help, in my speaking game. And I know that you can help people at home as well. But I just think the important message about this, right? The communication, the connection with people. If you start there, I think everything else falls into place. And the mechanics, I think, is something that you can teach, but it's the mechanics will come together for you if you start in the right place.
Absolutely. Well, such an honor to have been on this podcast. I mean, you are just an absolute beast at performance, and I always love jumping on with you because I learn just as much, if not more, from you than you do from me. So you're already one of the best communicators coming into the program, and you have been one of the absolute most vigilant in improving your own craft. And so it's been fun to watch someone like you come in at such a high level of communication and say, okay, how can I get better? How can I take this to the next level? So I think the best is yet to come for you. I just cannot wait to see how many people you're going to continue to transform with your message.
Well, I appreciate you, brother. And that's why I love having you on. That's why I love having you as a coach. And I love having you in my life. So thank you so much for affecting me the way that I am. And we're going to affect a lot of people together. Everybody at home, make sure you get a hold of Caleb. If you are looking to become a public speaker, he's my coach. So if he's my coach, I know what a good coach looks like. I've had a lot of them. If he's my coach, he's going to help you too. You can get the links down below. Don't forget, you can text GREAT to 55444. Get my pregame checklist. If you're one of those people that gets nervous going to meetings, if you're one of those people that kind of gets on edge a little bit, I'm going to help you learn how pros take that edge off, because there's a way to manipulate and optimize your nervous system to get that done. I appreciate you watching. Like I said, I'm trying to help you guys out. If you could share this out to people, if you know somebody who's trying to speak or somebody who wants to be a better communicator, share the podcast with them. I would appreciate it. We're helping people around the world, trying to help as many as we can. The more that you help, the better you're going to feel about it too. I hope you guys got something out of today. I know I did. I got better today. I know you did as well. So don't forget, we are always training. We are always trying to get better. And so I'm trying to help you here to live every day great.